Acting Captain's Log, March 17th, 2016. So we got another trailer for X-Men Apocalypse, a little bit longer than the first one, not too much though. I think it's important to mention right off the bat here that there's not too much new in this trailer. I mean, there's a couple of reveals here and there, there's a couple bit of new footage, but overall, what we knew from the first trailer is kind of what we know with this trailer. And I think that's good. I think that's important marketing-wise. I mean, especially when you look at stuff like Amazing Spider-Man 2, where literally pretty much the entire movie was given away in the trailer. There was entirely too much footage. Even though Winter Soldier didn't spoil its big reveal in the trailers, the fact that the first 10 minutes of that movie were released online by Marvel, I think, is a little bit insane. Stuff like that always drives me nuts. I don't think we need to ever see that much footage. But Bryan Singer has done a pretty good job, at least with Days of Future Past in this movie, not giving us too much. We know the core premise very, very well. We know the core themes very, very well, and we're just running with that and selling the movie on that before it hits. And there might be some surprises, or there might not be. We know exactly what we're in for, and I appreciate that a lot. Bryan Singer seems to Bryan Singer seems to do X-Men better than anything else. Just thinking about his filmography off the top of my head, like Superman Returns, the Jack the Giant Slayer, I think that was called, Valkyrie, like just all those movies, none of them have the same sort of thematic depth that his X-Men movies do, or at least attempt to have. And so it's good that he's back. I don't like his directing style particularly. I still think that visually there needs to be some sort of added flavor to what he does, but that's a different story. And Days of Future Past fixed that a little bit. So Bryan Singer clearly likes X-Men now. I mean, he famously didn't initially, but he likes it now. He knows what he's doing. He's excited about these stories, and he's very good at selling these movies on exactly what they're about right now. We're not revealing too much footage. We aren't making these giant fangasm moments in the middle of the trailer that reveal something about the movie that would have been more exciting to see on the big screen for the first time. It's kind of cool. And so I like that going into this movie, there doesn't feel like there's anything to spoil, you know? It doesn't feel like going in and watching this film is going to be just reliving the best moments from the trailer. I liked Deadpool okay. I wasn't crazy about it. I liked Deadpool okay, but part of my issue with that movie is that most of my favorite lines were in the trailers. And this doesn't seem to be doing that. With Days of Future Past, my favorite lines in the movies weren't in the trailer. My favorite scenes weren't in the trailer. Even with Winter Soldier, some of my favorite scenes were in the trailers. So it's good that Singer doesn't seem to be doing that, at least so far. He didn't do it with Days of Future Past. Doesn't look like he's doing it with Apocalypse. He's really good at jumping around multiple contexts and forming one coherent theme for his trailers without giving anything away from those particular scenes he rips from. So that's cool. Now, other thing I want to mention is I'm not an X-Men guy at all. I say this every now and then. I said it in the Deadpool spoiler cast. I'm sure I said it on Twitter at some point. I don't care about X-Men. I have liked exactly 2 X-Men runs, and that's the Joss Whedon run and the Grant Morrison run, because they were Joss Whedon and Grant Morrison, and I love Joss Whedon and Grant Morrison. X-Men as an idea, X-Men character-wise, X-Men history-wise, is just something that never really interested me at all. And I've read a lot of the Claremont stuff. I've read a lot of the mid-2000s stuff. I've read some of the Marvel Now stuff. I've read some of the classic stuff. It's as much as I've read of X-Men, I have a hard time caring. And so the movies have done this thing where they're slowly transforming into quintessential X-Men. And the more they do that, the less I seem to care. And that's not a statement on the movies, because Days of Future Past is a great film. I just don't care about it at all. My favorite X-Men movie is still X-Men First Class, mostly because it doesn't feel like an X-Men movie. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like a Matthew Vaughn movie. It's a totally different thing in my mind. And that's partly why I think Bryan Singer's style just doesn't appeal to me, because maybe he is the perfect X-Men guy. Maybe he's perfect at capturing that tone, and it's just not a tone I care for. So having that in mind, realize that both the first trailer and the second trailer didn't excite me for the movie, really at all. And I'm sure it's excited everyone else on the face of the earth, because the trailers are good. They're really well-made trailers. It looks like it's going to be a very well-made movie. It's just not my kind of movie. But let me talk about the things I do find kind of interesting. Firstly being Apocalypse himself. I love the idea of villains that open up the question of whether or not humanity is something that deserves to be saved. Because we always see like the inherent good of humanity, that regardless of who you deal with, you ought to save their life. Batman's got his no kill rule. Daredevil struggles with that in the first season of his show. Most superheroes have that to a degree, and so it becomes about this commitment to life over everything else. But then villains like Sensui from Yu Yu Hakusho, or Ultron in Age of Ultron, or even Apocalypse here, they open up the door of, okay, fine, you can have this morality of I have to save everyone, but think about whether or not collectively as a race we've done anything to merit that. Just by extending our lives, what good are we actually doing? And so humanity needs to change, it needs to evolve, it needs to go away, just depending on who you are. And just opening up that question of humanity as a whole, as a society, what good are we, I think is fascinating. And Apocalypse is clearly doing that. He's clearly on one side of that argument, where Ultron was all about improving humanity. Apocalypse is all about a step away humanity. We've got mutants now. I think that's kind of cool. I think he's going to have a lot in common with Ultron, which is exciting because I love Ultron. And just costume-wise and acting-wise, he's perfect. I think he looks fantastic, and I like the way he delivers his grand speeches. I can't wait to see some of that more in context. I can't wait for his inevitable big supervillain speech about why everything is awful and he's awesome. It's going to happen. It always happens. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that scene just for the acting. Also, acting-wise, love Michael Fassbender, love James McAvoy. They have a couple of good lines in the trailers, and I can't wait to see more of their interaction. Magneto seems to be going off the deep end pretty quickly. A big complaint people have with X-Men First Class is that Magneto and Xavier don't know each other for that long, and so their separation happens very quickly. Magneto takes an extreme position very quickly, and I buy that in the film. At the same time, I understand that criticism if you're an X-Men fan and you want to see that as a long-lasting friendship, particularly with how it's set up in the first film. And it wasn't a problem in First Class for me, but then you see him go a little bit deeper off that end in Days of Future Past, and it seems like he's going even further off that end here in Apocalypse, and Magneto's becoming more and more an extreme personality, and that could be cool. You could channel comic book Magneto pretty well with that, although I think they did a good job of that overall anyway. But I hope it's not... I hope he doesn't become too black and white. Because Magneto, while very clearly in support of mutants over humans, has a more nuanced philosophy. He's got more interesting things to say about the crimes of humanity and the crimes of mutant kind and the evolution between the two, and why one is superior. And it's not just a we're good, they're bad kind of thing. It's a little bit more interesting. And Magneto has at several points has went from being a villain to being a good guy, and a lot of that still comes from him having a mutant over human perspective. And I don't want these movies to go too far in the direction of making him completely against all humanity. I think that would be a mistake. Xavier's good. I like that Xavier is getting cocky. I like that Xavier, as these movies go on, is getting the things he's always dreamed of, and with the exception of his legs, and is sort of, at least it looks like he's letting his guard down in places. He has that scene where he says, I pity any person that attacks my school and my students. And very clearly it's gonna be about putting him in his place. And it'll be interesting to see what the dynamic is, because First Class is a movie about Magneto, Days of Future Past is a movie about Xavier. Will this be a blend of the two? Will this be about one more than the other? Will this be about someone else? And speaking of that someone else, the last thing I do want to mention is Mystique. Now, I'm not a fan of Jennifer Lawrence. I don't think she's a particularly good actress. I like her okay in some roles over others, but for the most part, I don't really care for her. And she, as Mystique, has been okay. I mean, I've never had a problem with her as Mystique, but we've had this weird progression where she's slowly becoming the main character, because we had her be the personification of the conflict in First Class. So she's right up there as the middle point between everything in that film. And then she's sort of the catalyst for everything in Days of Future Past, and here it looks like she's leading the X-Men into battle. And if we make her a good guy, if we make her an X-Men, if we do that, I don't know what else there is to say with that character. Captain Logan and I were talking about that over Facebook a little bit, and I think we're both pretty sure that she's gonna die. And I would be okay with that because I think character-wise it's been progressing well enough. And I don't know how much more Jennifer Lawrence wants to keep doing those movies, especially considering how much paint and makeup she has to get into for them. And it might also partly be why she wears more and more costumes and more disguises, just because so you have to do less paint. And that's understandable. I mean, Ron Perlman talks the same thing about Hellboy, where those movies are great, but getting into that makeup is awful. And so if they're going to kill Mystique off anywhere, I feel like this is going to be the point, and it seems like they're at least trying to get us there. At the same time, could be a red herring. Seeing her get choked up by Apocalypse could just be a signal that someone else dies to save her or something like that. Age of Ultron did that quite a bit, but there's lots of tells in the trailers and in the movie where it looks like Hawkeye's going to die and he doesn't. So we'll see how that goes. Movie looks good. I like the soundtrack a lot. I like Apocalypse a lot. I like. Here's the one thing. I don't like the costumes. I like some of the costumes. I like the way Magneto looks a lot. I like the way Xavier looks a lot. I like the way Nightcrawler looks. But the standard black X-Men outfit looks awful. And I wish we would go back to the days of future, not days of the future past, but the first class yellow and blue outfits, or the yellow and blue outfit that Negasonic Teenage Warhead had in Deadpool. I want that costume. I want something that looks more vibrant than just black leather. And particularly a black leather that looks way too anime over detailed. And actually, if you think about it, the X-Men anime had better looking costumes in these movies. It's kind of dumb. I don't like the costumes at all. I wish they would change those. That's my one gripe with the film overall, and even me not being an X-Men guy, I think these movies look really good. And I'm pretty confident this is going to do well. I'm pretty confident this is going to be overall a good movie. I think there's lots of interesting stuff that Bryan Singer hasn't told us yet. Because with a character like Apocalypse, with two contrasting philosophies like Magneto and Xavier, there's so much you could do here that they're just barely touching with these trailers. And considering the way Singer likes to cut his trailers with just one theme through multiple scenes, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more interesting stuff here. We might be in for another X2 kind of scenario where we get a very, very deep movie with the two main characters and the one villain. I think this might be the best movie in the X-Men franchise. Not personally for me, because I still love First Class, I like that style a lot, but I think this movie is doing everything right as far as organizing these characters, having the X-Men we like Cyclops and Jean and Nightcrawler thrown in there, finally bringing in Apocalypse, finally dealing far more literally with the ideas of gods and men and mutants versus humanity and all that stuff. I feel like this is a really good culmination of what the franchise has been building to, so that's exciting. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, whether you agree or disagree with anything I said. Be sure to check out both trailers, and if you have any guesses as to who might die, whether it's Mystique or what the movie might be going for, go ahead and leave those in the comments. It'd be fun to speculate a little bit, considering we still know very little about the movie. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.